for people in our business, football time in the fall, you get a lot of coach speak. When you leave the football season and you put microphones in front of these coaches, a lot of times you get gold. That's exactly what we got with Steve Sarkisian, Lane Kiffin, John Summerall, and others. We'll focus on the Steve Sarkisian note because the Texas head coach firing on the academic standards at Ole Miss, saying, quote, all you got to do is take basket weaving, and you can go to Ole Miss. Welcome to Southeast Sports Plus, Gerhard Mathangani, Gabriella Genereaux, Patrick Walsh. I love this time of year. It usually only boils up right in like June, July, August, right before SEC Media Days. Then everybody talks during SEC Media Days.
Right.
But we are getting into a point here where coaches are being a little bit looser. We've seen this with Lane Kiffin. We've seen this a little bit with Dabo Swinney earlier in this offseason. Now with Steve Sarkisian. All you have to do is take basket weaving and you can get an Ole Miss degree. How those words land on your ears?
I mean, is he wrong?
Oh, wow! Piling on.
I mean, I grew up about 45 minutes away from Ole Miss campus, and I feel like it was just an understood. If you made a 22 or below on your ACT, we knew where you were going to school.
You're going to Ole Miss.
You're going to Ole Miss.
I wasn't expecting this for you to take extra shots to join the Steve Sarkisian bandwagon, but yet we're here.
I mean, I don't think he lied. I just don't think he lied. Was the comment necessary? Probably not. And I thought the basket weaving part was hilarious because out of all the things you could have come up with, he said basket weaving.
I think that was always kind of the go-to for easy A schools. Is the basket weaving, and if you want to make it a little bit harder, it's underwater basket weaving. That's what it came up to me.
Okay, well, I love that. I thought it was hilarious.
Hey, listen, I come from an old school mindset of C's get degrees, so like if you can pass, you can get the degree, you're good to go. Patrick, what do you make of this war on words with Steve Sarkisian and the boys over at Ole Miss?
All I'm gonna say is, Gabriella, you are so lucky that Tennessee has gone 4 years now, including this upcoming season. They're not on the schedule for Ole Miss. They're not going to play each other. It's been 4 years since the last meeting.
They played in 2022. That's when the golf ball situation happened.
Oh, that's right.
How'd that game go? You're talking about the education, but how did that game go over?
Okay. No comment.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't throw anything, okay?
Who made the CFP last year? Ooh.
I didn't throw anything, but the refs were horrible in that game.
Okay, that's an auto fine right there. If she were in the NBA, you would be fine now. You'd be absolutely fine. You'd never be able to,
probably
go back to another
longest
game.
college football game I've ever attended, though. It was like 12-15, and they were still playing.
Why? Because they have to take the mustard things off the ground because Tennessee fans didn't know what the heck to do.
No, because I have actually been to the longest game
man.
in college football history, technically. 7 overtimes.
Oh, that's
Penn State, I think they played Illinois. It went 7 overtimes. It was freezing. It was cold. It was terrible. Well, not really terrible because it was really cool because I'd never gone to a game like that before in an atmosphere like that. 105,000. But anyways, you're lucky that Ole Miss isn't on the schedule because that would just be another storyline around this team going into this next year. I think you could make at least 5 storylines or at least 4 storylines for games that they play against next year. And we'll get into that in a minute. But I just find it so weird that, Steve Sarkisian, not necessarily weird that he's coming to bat for what Lane Kiffin said because, obviously Lane Kiffin made headlines for what he said about his recruiting challenges and the diversity or lack thereof, he said, up there in Oxford, Mississippi. And when you get to LSU, it's a lot easier to recruit. But it's kind of funny that, Sarkisian is following up one day after his good buddy, and him and Lane Kiffin are good buddies.
And they go way
back to USC. Yeah. They were assistants for each other under Pete Carroll. It's just so weird that he's just going to bat for him. But, hey, I don't know what Ole Miss did.
And, and typically in these situations, you'll get the coach when they'll do the thing where it's like they'll say a blanket statement where it's like you could take – at some schools, you could take underwater basket weaving or you could take basket weaving. He didn't do that. He didn't say – because like you mentioned, I'm sure Ole Miss is not the only SEC school with perceived lower academic standards. I'm sure there are others, and he didn't blanket the statement. He said at Ole Miss you can get that degree, especially like you said, after Lane Kiffin's comments to Vanity Fair, where even he if you ask I think it was the guy that wrote the article for Vanity Fair said that Lane Kiffin brought that up unprovoked. He didn't even ask the question. It was just Lane firing off at the mouth as Lane does.
And I think I sort of understand what Sark is saying, and the reason why he's directing it at Ole Miss is because, they brought up the fact that the whole Luke Farrelly situation, being able to pluck him away from Clemson while he was in class. So I guess there is something to do with that. You combine that with the fact that I think Ole Miss has a 97% acceptance rate. That's kind of, that's definitely not Notre Dame, which I think Notre Dame has, like a 12% acceptance rate? I mean, I got denied from Notre Dame, but it's okay. I lived after that. But it's just so funny that Ole Miss continues to be the punching bag. Mm-hmm. And I feel like, as Gabriella said, it's only fuel to the fire because Pete Golding knows how to coach. He got experience, valuable experience. Although Charlie Weiss was calling the plays on offense, he got valuable experience in crunch time situations, and they almost did beat Miami.
Right.
They were 1 or 2 plays away from beating Miami and playing for the national championship.
Yeah. So. And to me, Pete also strikes me as a guy where he's probably not going to comment on this, but I feel like it's going to be in the back of his head going through the season, and it's just going to add to the way he coaches.
I know.
I feel so bad.
Right? Like,
he got it from Dabo at the beginning. He took over in the playoffs, got him to the semifinals, and then he takes heat from Dabo, and now he's taking heat from Lane Kiffin, and now he's taking heat from Steve Sarkisian, and it just feels like that there might be a gang of coaches that maybe.
I don't know if it's necessarily at him though. Do you feel like it's more just at Ole Miss, or do you?
I don't think that any of these coaches say Ole Miss by name. If it weren't for, I'm going to say something that's going to sound accusatory. It's really not.
Okay.
I think that there is something about Pete Golding and the way that do you remember how much the country loved him in the playoff run?
Yeah.
And he was
well,
refreshing
I think that also came
from
the hate for Lane Kiffin.
Correct.
Right?
Yes, I think they walked hand in hand, but I think there was a refreshing take of, this is just a guy that's just going to speak off the cuff. And I think the nation was like, man, I like that guy. I would play for a guy, and I think in that there was a tad bit of jealousy from some of the upper crust coaches, like Texas, who's expected to be in the playoff, like Ole Miss, like Lane Kiffin, who that's just his nature. It's in his blood to troll. Yeah. I think there was a little bit of that, and I just don't think that if let's just say Kyle Whittingham is the coach at Ole Miss, I don't think any of these comments come out. I think it's because it's Pete Golding.
And you also have to remember the biggest loser of the college football playoff last year was Lane Kiffin. Because he left a team that made it to the semifinals without him.
Right.
So it kind of did prove to everyone, hey, Lane Kiffin constructed a team, but he kind of did it with his assistants, which some of them did end up staying at Ole Miss. Some of them ended up going to LSU. Mm-hmm. Some of the LSU assistants actually went to Ole Miss, and I think that those assistants were actually kind of decent, some of the better ones under Brian Kelly. So it's just so weird that, everyone is just so jealous of Ole Miss. Could you imagine if someone said that 10 years ago?
I know.
That people would be jealous of Ole Miss. Texas football would be jealous of Ole Miss.
Which is insane. It's insane.
I think LSU was jealous of Ole Miss this past year. They'll never admit it.
Oh, no, they wouldn't.
But they definitely were. Oh, come on. Our neighbors up north.
Right.
That team to the north, as Urban Meyer would always say, is going to the college football playoff. And meanwhile, we're just sitting at home for the last 4 years.
Yeah, I know.
Like, what are we doing?
Yeah, and this is hilarious because all this comes right before the SEC spring meetings, which is it's not too far away from where we sit right now. It's over in Miramar Beach. The spring meetings are literally 2 weeks away from now, 3 weeks away from now, and they're all mostly closed door situations, so we won't be able to get much access. But I think we should just pop out there and be like, "Lane, what up?"
See if there's any confrontation between the coaches.
Oh yeah, which I think there always is some kind of friction. I think there was a couple years ago, the seating chart got posted, and it became a big deal. It's like, oh, look where Nick Saban is compared to Steve Sarkisian or whoever it was. I found it really funny. But all this comes on the back of what Patrick talked about earlier with Lane Kiffin speaking with Vanity Fair. It's like a 4-hour interview with Vanity Fair, and his comments that made headlines were the fact that it was hard to recruit. You could read the comments for yourself, basically saying that it was hard to recruit to go to Oxford because of all of the there was lack of diversity, obviously, that's there. Spoke to some of the racial, subtext, so to speak, in Oxford, Mississippi. I found all of this really interesting because, like I said, he was not even asked a specific question. He just unwillingly just gave this up.
Yeah, and I think it makes sense. And I don't know if this was him trying to describe, the reasons he believes LSU is the place he'll win national championships, because I feel like that has been the hot question of, you made it to the playoffs with Ole Miss. Why can't you do it there? And so I think he feels the need to defend himself on why he feels like LSU is a better situation for him. And I see where if you didn't grow up in Mississippi, if that is not like the environment where you can kind of see just from the history, thinking, oh, maybe I don't want my kid to go to Mississippi because I've heard things and I've seen things and I know the history that's there. So to me, the statement does make sense.
I think the statement does make sense. I find it interesting that this is the time that he says it, because everything about Oxford was all complimentary whenever he got there.
Yeah.
And it just feels like now it's like, okay, it's jab throwing time, to your point about maybe a greater perception of people. And I think that he thinks that he needed to recruit both the players and unrecruit or do some mental shakeup for grandmothers and whoever might be a little bit, scared to send their kids there.
Right.
I just find it interesting, the timing of all of this and why is now when he was already there at Ole Miss. And if it